questions on we're video recording this. This will be on YouTube, so it'll be good to get we hear those questions on the YouTube channel as well in the video. So just a little housekeeping items.
Are you ready to start back there? Okay. So we'll go ahead and get going. My name is Dave Kiff. I'm the city manager. I'm here with Gavin Curran, the assistant city manager, and Rob, you want to introduce yourself?
Rob Garinke. I'm here on behalf of the city as well.
So firstly, I want to let you know that we're going to go to a Q&A session after a presentation that'll probably take 25 minutes. We're going to try to be as short as we can. But I do want you to ask any question that you're comfortable with or uncomfortable with. There's no reason to hold anything back. This is a conversation. I'm not afraid of questions. I love this town like you do. We all love the town. That's why we're here. So we're trying to navigate what the best pathway is. And there's a number of different pathways that can be taken, which we'll talk about. So we're going to roll through the presentation a little bit. Here's what it entails. We're going to talk about, or just remind everybody what our services are, our infrastructure. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget, talk about how we're funded, and then kind of we'll go back to you and say, how would you deal with this, or what kind of questions do you want to know? Next slide, please. So what are our services? Again, this is pretty top level for a lot of you folks who are here. Move one slide too far. We're a full service city, right? Unlike, say, many of the cities in South Orange County that they contract with the fire authority or the sheriff's department, we have our own police department, we have our own fire department, we have our own marine safety department. It's about the third largest marine safety department in California, which is big. We have our own community development team. Those are planning and building and code enforcement. We have a cultural arts division. It's very small, just 2 people. We have our public works function, which is the same that any public city would have: engineering, traffic, streets repair, parks maintenance, facilities repair. We have a transit agency, unlike many cities, we run the trolley and Laguna Local, and that's combined with our recreation department and the senior center. And then we have our own, not a water system, because that's right across the street, the county water district. We have a wastewater system that the city runs. Next slide, please. So as noted, we're full service. There's just some data about some of our called loads. Let's keep going. For instance, here's what the police activity that we've been trying to compare and show both the council and the public from year to year, kinds of the calls of service. And you can see that we have been more aggressive than in years past on a lot of our nuisance citations, our parking citations. And overall, the good news is it's not that we have been charging people or arresting people with less crime. We think there is less crime. There are less incidents of both property and violent crime. Can you go to the next slide? Here's kind of some of the data on our fire department. Remember, one of the big changes that we made a couple of years ago was to bring ambulance service in-house. So we now have ambulance operators versus a private firm that does that. But you can see some of the call load there. And I was mentioning for marine safety, especially when we talk on the South Laguna beaches, we're now trying to serve over about 6 million beach visitors annually with 7.5 miles with a lot of coves. So you can see with some of the statistics there for marine safety. Next slide. Here's what Public Works does. We've tried to ratchet this up to address visitor impacts. We're collecting trash in the summertime more often. We're pressure washing more often. We're doing more beach grooming. And then you can see kind of some of the impacts of South Laguna's us taking on the beaches down there. We can come back to any of these slides if you'd like. But next slide. One of the big efforts that I know everybody in the room is aware of is our undergrounding efforts. And the city's taken a step that many cities don't do, and that we support up to 20% of a residential undergrounding district. That it's newly gone to 20%. The big Woods Cove and West Street residential driven underground districts receive 20% funding from the city. And that's all of us that contribute to that. And this is a big commitment to both reduce wildfire risks and safeguard evacuation routes so poles don't come down when we're trying to get out of here, and improving service reliability with less power safety, public safety power shutoffs. Next slide, please. The other thing that we look at closely and is what we've done differently involving wildfire preparedness. And this is a slide that talks about a lot of it. Remember that we're a community that almost all of the community is in one of 3 fire hazard severity zones. It just kind of steps down from the hill. Where I live on Graceland, I'm in the medium, which is kind of hard for me to believe, but we are. It goes as far down to almost to Catalina. And that affects both insurance rates and then some of the codes that are required for households in those areas, especially in remodels. But the fuel modification zone aspect of this is really important. We, unlike many communities where, for instance, Wayne and I were talking earlier about the difference between Newport and Laguna, because I worked there while I lived here. Newport has HOA paid fuel mod. In other words, the neighborhoods around Newport Coast, they're privately paid for. In Laguna, we as a city pay for, as city taxpayers, pay for all of our fuel modification. And it's a pretty expensive thing that we weren't doing as far back as 10 years ago. And depending on how rainy the year is going to be, you have to do 2 passes or 3 passes. This is going to be a bad year for fuel mod. I mean, expense-wise. We're going to have to do at least 3 passes. It's nice to have everything green and wet, but that's just bigger brush being dry and brown soon. So we'll have to do 3 passes, and that increases the expense by about $900,000 each pass. Next slide, please. So Gavin's going to talk a little bit more about some of our infrastructure.
So on this particular slide, just it kind of goes through what the city's infrastructure is. So it's important to know that the city has 4 fire stations. We have the City Hall building here. We've got 3 community centers, the Suzy Q, the CRC, and Lang Park. 17 parks, totaling about 47 acres. A police station. We have trolleys, as Dave mentioned. Of course, our beaches. Streets and roads, about 93 miles. We own almost or a little over 1,200 streetlights. We try to maintain 95 miles of sewer line. We're unique in Laguna. We have 26 lift stations, which is very unique in the topography here of the city. We require those lift stations. 78 miles of storm drain. And of course, we have our courtyard out on Laguna Canyon Road. And so recently we did do basically a city facilities or a facilities master plan study. We didn't look at all the facilities, just about 26 of those, really to see where we were maintenance wise, what we may be able to do to improve those. So when we did get that report back, just because obviously the facilities are somewhat a little older, we came back, the consultant came back with about $314 million in just maintenance over the next 20 years that needed to be done. And if the city wanted to do improvements, of course, you can bring those maintenance costs down by doing modernization, but some of the designs and things they came up with, they kind of costed those out to anywhere from $186 million on the short ends, kind of the lighter side of improvements, to $440 million. And when I say 26 facilities, they looked at all our fire stations, our city hall, our police stations, and they were looking at modernizing space and kind of redesigning those for kind of more modern facilities. And then we always talk about why it matters. Of course, upgraded fire, police, and marine safety facilities, always a good idea to do. Kind of helps with emergency response. I know the council's even considering moving the Fire Station 1 over to the Village Entrance area, and that actually helps with response times in the canyon area. So safer, more accessible communities and parks, library renovations. And when I say safer, Some of our fire stations need seismic rehabilitation, which is fairly expensive, but a necessary thing to do. And that kind of leads in that last bullet point, which talks about damages in storms and fires and earthquake events. We want to make sure we're protected from that. So just some local programs. Obviously, everyone's well aware we're doing Fire Station 4 replacement. That's down in South Laguna. That's moving forward. That's our first new fire station in 55 years. So we're very excited about that. We're expected to complete that in 2027. And as Dave mentioned, we have those fuel modification zones and there's about, I think we said about 400 acres of those. Those are managed by goat grazing or hand crews. It's kind of that reduction of the vegetation. And as Dave mentioned, cost-wise, those costs could go up or down depending on what we saw today. Kind of a rainier season this past year, what we saw today, you just get more growth. So you might have to pass through those same areas at least once, maybe twice, to make sure you maintain those to that 90%. You don't want to get that vegetation down to where there's some protection there. Some other local programs is the RENA numbers, the compliance for more affordable housing. I think Laguna needs to have at least 394 housing units, according to the states. About 118 of those need to be planned for low income. So, of course, we're always exploring city opportunities, some city-owned sites, adaptive reuse options, prioritize some housing sites that meet those state requirements. And as I mentioned, 394 units, and about 118 of those need to be very low-income units. And of course, we have our economic development and business retention. So we're currently working on proactively addressing some of the retail vacancies. You always want a very robust downtown, so we're making improvements there, kind of trying to streamline the permitting process, really to help to support some of those businesses, attracting new businesses to come in. We want to make sure they can get in quickly when they can. And just improving mobility in the downtown areas and around Laguna with, improved parking, but really wayfinding and enhanced signage so people know where to go when they need to park and move people around throughout the city.
Okay,
So-
and then I was taking the next part, right? Yep.
Go.
I want to talk. We're going to move next to what the city's budget looks like, and we're going to talk mainly about the general fund budget. That's where most things are. We have other funds too, but most things are in the general fund. And in the current year that we're in, we're expected to have about 98 million in expenditures for the services. We're about 96 million in revenue to the general fund, so we have a bit of a gap. I'll work to close that. In the proposals I've talked to the council about, it's to siphon some funds away from capital improvements to fill that gap. So it's not like we draw into our reserves. But so why is this happening? Our expenditures are growing faster than our revenues. It's that simple. So there's lots of solutions. We'll talk about those in just a moment. But labor costs, insurance costs, the new things that we're doing like fuel modification, those are things that are going up again faster than our revenues. And we'll talk about the different revenues in just a second. One of the things I wanted to point out, because it always comes up.
David,
Go ahead, Wayne.
could I mention something that Governor just which is so important in Laguna Beach? And that is that we are a hillside community. And whether it's our sewage or whether it's our water, we spend a lot of time pumping up to make things come down.
We do.
We are not Huntington Beach, where everything comes down from a certain level and everything is okay.
Yeah.
It's just who we are. Our geology makes things more costly here. It's not the same as everybody else. And I'm not sure once in a while that we recognize that challenge that we have because we are a substantial hillside community.
I appreciate that point. Yeah, thank you, Wayne. I do want to mention our unfunded pension liabilities, and way at the end, I'll have a slide if someone wants to dive more into this with me. It's really arcane. I just wanted to remind everybody that as many folks who say, why can't you do something about that? We can only do one thing. We can only pay it off. And we either pay it off quickly or you pay it off slowly. You can't make it go away. And we could, again, we're happy to dive into that further. I know it's frustrating for folks to hear that, but that's what the law says. So what does this mean? Well, we need to do a couple things to me as the manager. We need to find ways to reduce our ongoing expenses, which could mean service reductions. We kind of need to right size and live within our means. And then we might have to delay some projects. But given what we've laid out, I also think we need to look at new revenue sources to try to accomplish, especially the more capital intensive things that we need to do. So next slide. This pie chart talks about where our revenues go. You can see the first three slices are police. Sorry, I'm starting from about 2:30, 3 o'clock onward. Police, fire, and marine safety. And then comes public works is one of the light blues. And then the other big one is community development, that light green. And that's mostly offset by fees. We can talk about that more, and then the public works gets a lot of different grants and gas tax from the state, but we do have a general fund contribution. But you see the lion's share of the dark blue, the purple, and the dark green, and those are all general fund projects. Sorry, general fund departments. Next slide, please. This is where our revenues are come from, and I was talking right before we started about how Laguna Beach is pretty unique in terms of how dependent we are on property taxes. That's a great thing because in terms of property taxes are one of the most stable resources that a city can have. It's just unique in Laguna that so much of our revenue comes from property taxes. So where in other places you'd see a lot more share of the sales tax and share of sometimes the hotel bed tax. Next slide, please. So here are some of the trends that I look at with our budget. There is something going on economically that's adds to uncertainty, and especially with our downtown and our retail, it's remarkably flat, and that's not really a good thing. You guys know we've had some restaurants close, we had some restaurants open. But our sales tax should be going up by 2 or 3% per year, and like the last quarter was flat, if not a little bit down. So that's something we're aware of, and we're aware of with store vacancies, and we do work on it. The TOT is going to go through that's hotel bed tax. That's going to go through a little bit of a bumpy period. Pacific Edge is not a huge generator right now, but it's going to completely shut down for 2 years for construction. You guys know the Hotel Laguna has been closed. Happy to take questions about the whys and whys of that. And then another quirky thing happened. The Sonder hospitality firm went bankrupt, and that was 2 hotels in Laguna, and both of those have been closed to resolve the Sonder bankruptcy. So there is a little bit of an international travel lag going on. And we do rely on that to help some of our bigger hotels, the Surf and Sand, the Montage, Casa Loma. And I guess the good news recently is they've been getting higher revenue per room. I look at that. It means they kind of upscaled a little bit. So while there's fewer people, there's more room revenue coming in. And I mentioned the rising costs for her own city operations. Next slide, please. So what have we done to manage the budget? I've held a lot of positions vacant. I'm going to hold more vacant and remove some in the proposed budget coming up here for 26, 27 that I'll talk to the community about in about a month. We're looking at realignments of department functions where we can shrink a little bit and maybe have one department head where we used to have 2. We continue to actively seek state and federal grants. We just got $1.6 million from the federal government, which is a nice surprise, for the South Laguna Fire Station and for improvements on Laguna Canyon Road. We continue to try to modernize our technology. We try to gently drive people online, but a lot of people still like to come to City Hall, which is great. And then we try to reduce our fuel costs too with fleet electrification. Next slide.
Promenade.
We'll talk about that.
That's going to help us either going to increase or decrease city revenues in the next year.
Well, the hope is that it will increase it, but I know there's community skepticism about that. I'm of the mindset that I think it will increase it. They've got some good vendors coming in already that are lining up, but we'll have to go through the construction period, which began this week and continue through, hopefully the end of May, the first part of June should be all done. Remember to shop there. It's still, all the shops are still open. So when we look at the outlook, you know, our outlook is fairly stable, but I think limited growth. And I talked about the tax revenues. Our projections that we use, and you'll see these in our budget estimates, are anywhere from 2 to 5%. So sales tax, I am hoping it rebounds a little bit with more vacancies being filled. And our TOT, we peg at about 5% per year. But again, those cost increases are ranging from 6 to 10, which is a problem. Some of them are totally out of our control, like insurance. Next slide. This is kind of how our public safety costs are going. And so these are personnel costs. And I'd be happy to show you what the average person in these departments makes. This isn't an area where I want to take a hatchet to, because it's important that we get quality candidates. And we do compare ourselves to other cities that poach from us and we poach from them. So we try to stay in the realm of pay for between Newport, Irvine, Tustin, places like, what are some of our comp cities, Kevin? Anaheim, Tustin, I mentioned, to make sure that we can keep people here, because I don't want to be the farm team for people to learn and then leave. So it's just an important factor in some of our costs. Next slide.
Can they afford them to live here?
Most don't. Yeah, most don't live here. So make sure I have my glasses on. So here's some of the things that when I look at our budget, making sure that we have them in there. These are things that are on the horizon that I need to identify funding for. I talked about the fuel modification that will continue to grow because we're adding 2 big fuel modification zones that are about 50 acres. We'll see continued supply cost increases. We're trying to be better about responding to visitors and visitor impacts. So that means our park ranger program, stronger parking enforcement, and better and more frequent cleanup. And then the Marine Safety Department, again, which I mentioned is a big department. The question for us is, we had an amount of money that came to the city from the county, and it was a one-time fund. It was about 22 million, 20 million. And we've been drawing that down. There's going to come a time about 3 to 4 years from now that amount is going to be gone, and I need to shift all that to the general fund. Or find reductions to offset it so it doesn't overwhelm the general fund. And then Glavin talked about our replacement facilities. The Fire Station 4 is funded, the Promenade is funded, but Fire Station 1 is not yet. And then we need to do some seismic improvements on Fire Stations 2 and 3, but not replace those, at least not right now. So I need to make sure I've identified funding for those activities. And then we talked about the state affordable housing mandates. I think a time's going to come, it's not here yet, where the state says you haven't made enough progress with your mandate, and you should be setting aside funds to help people pay for these. And then there are members of our community who say, hey, we'd like to be a community that supports especially artists and workers with more assistance. I know that's not universal, but I hear that from a lot of folks. And then oftentimes we want to be able to be in a position to purchase parcels for open space when those come available. I think that's what's protected the city from a lot of outside influence, is to be able to buy up open space and not leave that for development. Next slide, please. So I think this is where we're going to talk about this tough subject of, do we need more revenue? I was going to ask Rob to talk about this.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave.
I'm not shirking it. I promise to take any questions.
I'm happy to do it. Thanks to all of you. And, as Dave outlined, the city is facing certain pressures on rising costs. And I think it's important to note that these are things that really all cities, not just in Orange County and really across the state are facing similar pressures from the economy, from, rising costs, et cetera. There are things that make Laguna Beach unique about its geography. There's certainly a lot that makes it special, but they face a lot of the same issues as other cities. And it has a lot of the same options from a revenue standpoint. And so the city is looking into some of those options. And I want to make clear that nothing's been decided about this, that any of these kinds of options I'm going to talk about would ultimately have to go on the ballot and be approved by the voters, right? So it's really kind of in the early phases. But the city is looking at two things: the potential for voter-approved sales tax or transient occupancy tax, which is a hotel tax, right? And funds from those that are voter-approved, they stay local here in Laguna Beach, and they fund the general fund, which is really kind of the city's main fund that Dave and Gavin both outlined. It's kind of like your checking account at home. It's the main fund that funds most of the services: police, fire, marine safety, keeping our public areas safe and clean, maintaining the streets, the sidewalks, the roads, fire mitigation, fuel modification, a lot of the other stuff we've been talking about this evening. So let's talk a little bit about transient occupancy tax. This is applied when you stay in a hotel. It also applies to Airbnbs, short-term rentals, VRBO, and it's applied only to individuals, normally visitors and tourists, who are coming in and staying in the hotel. It's an additional fee that's added to your room charge. These rates vary pretty widely from city to city. There are cities in Orange County that charge no hotel tax. There are cities that charge really kind of between 8 and 15%. A lot of the cities around Disneyland, they charge a higher rate. Laguna Beach is at 12%, and then there's an additional, voluntary fee that is paid in on top of that makes it functionally 14. But the part that comes to the city is 12% directly, and you can see how that kind of slots in with other cities in Orange County. Santa Ana's at 11, Tustin's at 13, Anaheim and Garden Grove are at 15. And so the city's considering a measure that would increase the TOT by 2% and update what's subject to the hotel tax and possibly apply a different rate to short-term rentals. This would be, again, a locally controlled general tax, and all those funds would go into the city's general fund, and it would be anticipated to generate about $3 million for the city's general fund, and the city's general fund is $98 million currently. So it's roughly about it would equal about 3% of the annual general fund. The revenues would be paid by hotel, short-term rental, and other lodging facility guests, not by residents, unless you want to do a staycation. And so the voters, again, would have to approve that. The city council would first have to consider presenting it to the voters. It would take a supermajority vote of the council to put it on the ballot, and then a majority of the residents would have to approve, a majority of the voters. The other alternative is a sales tax. And so there are some interesting facts about sales tax. We talked about city revenues, property taxes, sales taxes, hotel taxes, certainly. With property tax and sales tax, although they're really important chunks of the city's general fund, it's important to know that the city only keeps a fraction of the property taxes paid by residents and businesses. I think it's about 25 cents on the dollar that the city retains in property tax. In sales tax, it's actually a little bit smaller. So the sales tax rate in Laguna Beach is 7.75%. So if you go to the convenience store and you spend $100, there's certain things that are exempt, like groceries and prescriptions, but by and large, you're going to pay about $7.75 in sales tax. 6% of that, though, or $6 of the $7.75 actually goes to the state of California. Another 75 cents goes to various agencies at the county level for transportation and other items. And the city only gets 1% or $1 of the $7.75 comes back to the city. And this is kind of the default deal for municipalities in the state of California. There's 500 odd cities in the state. This is the base rate unless the residents have approved additional dollars. Another interesting fact about sales tax, actually, most of it is paid by tourists and visitors, and this is by analyzing receipts. So it's not quite like a hotel levy that is paid nearly entirely by visitors, but the bulk of sales taxes are paid by people who are coming into the city, shopping in local stores, eating in local restaurants, and then they're going home, right? It kind of reinforces how important that tourism economy is to the city and to the city's budget. And again, a little bit over half of it is paid by visitors. In terms of how Laguna Beach compares to other cities in Orange County, Laguna Beach is actually tied for the lowest rate in Orange County and is among one of the lowest rates in the state of California. It's really just receiving that base rate, that 1% share, and it's at 7.75%. That's the same rate as some of our neighboring cities, Newport Beach, Aliso Viejo, Huntington Beach, Dana Point. They're all at 7.75%. Other cities in the county, Fountain Valley is at 8.75, Seal Beach is at 9.25. But if you look also again beyond Orange County's borders to other kind of coastal destination communities, you could see Laguna Beach is again very, very low. It's again the same as Dana Point and Newport Beach, but if you look at cities like Santa Barbara is at 9.25, Carmel at 9.25, Monterey, Palm Springs, all at that 9.25 level. And there's other cities that are in the 8.75 range, Palm Desert, Solvang, Pismo's at 8.25. So if you think about cities that are sort of similarly constituted, similarly situated, tourist communities that sit on the coast, Laguna Beach is much lower than those. If the voters were to approve an additional sales tax in Laguna, it would take the rate from 7.75 to 8.75, but the amount that goes to the state and to the county stays the same. 100% of those funds would by law stay in Laguna Beach because it's a voter approved measure. By law, those dollars have to stay local to pay for Laguna Beach services, anything in the general fund, police, fire, streets, roads, etc. I mentioned a moment ago that there's certain items that are exempt from sales tax. That includes most groceries, prescriptions and many medical supplies, rent, utilities, services, and anything that's bought with assistance benefits, CalFresh. Those are all exempt from sales tax. There's no tax charged on them now, and nor would there be under any proposal from the city. And so again, this would again have to be approved by voters. So have to go through the same process as the hotel measure. Yes? Yeah, this is getting into the 201 level class, right? But yes, you pay the rate in your local city. This is my last slide. Give me just 1 second here. Yeah. So again, same process as the hotel tax. So it'd have to go to the council. Supermajority of the council would have to put it on the ballot, and then a simple majority of the voters would have to approve it. The sales tax would generate about $7.8 million annually to support the general fund. It would bring us to that 8.75 rate that would match certain other kind of destination cities, Palm Desert, Solvang. And again, it would be a locally controlled tax, meaning the city would get to keep 100% of those revenues. It wouldn't be split with the state or the county or shared with any other municipality. So yes, I think that's the end, and we could go into questions. And I'll do the mic. Yep.
Remember your name?
Rob.
Rob?
Yeah.
Okay. What you shared with us is just phenomenal, honestly. And that is that one of the big things is that
Just so people at home.
that we have an incredible population that comes here during the summer and even rest of the year, that the other members of our community are paying for their enjoying of our community. And how can we do something about this? Well, throughout Orange County, we have places like Disneyland, we have places like Knott's Berry Farm. They're charging $100 a day for their people to be there. We probably have one of the most economically affordable places there is in all of Orange County for people to come to. And I think all of us want to share that, but at the same time, is it fair for us to be paying for it? Is there a way that we can be equitable so that they're in their pair way to come here and we're enjoying their enjoying of our Laguna Beach? I mean, can we do that? Because we have a wonderful place. We have a place they wanted to be. Can we share it? But we cannot afford a formula to subsidize them in coming to our community. And that feels very, to me, like, oh, wow, I'm really protecting my site. But at the same time, we have to pay for it. I know that I listen to police sirens, fire and sirens, and everything else on today. Well,
Those are people who are visiting us that are causing those problems. I'm not sure that I should be paying for them. Thank you very much for sharing your information with us.
Thanks for your comments.
I really appreciate Wayne's question overall, and I think we always rack our brains to try to think of ways that we can shift visitor impact costs to visitors. The main way to do that is parking. The kicker to that, though, and actually the Planning Commission just here last night approved our latest proposal to increase parking rates. We have to do it within a certain level. We can't just do what the market will bear. We have to do what the Coastal Commission will bear. Remember, almost all the city is in the coastal zone, and the Coastal Commission has the ability to override and call up us if we have too much of a parking rate increase. So I think our increase is proposed to be 10% per year, which is about the most the Coastal Commission has tolerated. And it's a 5-year plan. Again, it was just adopted by the Planning Commission last night. The other opportunities that Wayne mentioned, we do if we have an opportunity to make a claim associated with a medical call, we'll try to do that through an individual's insurance, no matter who you were and where you lived. We don't have that same ability to do that with a police call, except through if someone was subject to a fine, we'll collect that fine. But I can't figure out another way to address visitor impacts. Folks have talked about a change to the business license tax that would apply just to places that serve alcohol and restaurants. Those would still apply to all of us too. We can't just pick and choose the visitors. Folks have talked about a sales tax that maybe just applied to certain industries. So that's separate from a business license tax, right? Business license tax is one thing, sales tax is other. California doesn't allow us to charge a sales tax just on certain types of activities like foods or food and beverage. Welcome other questions.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you, Wayne. Why don't you go to Nick?
As we move around to, I've got feedback cards here, which you are not obligated to fill out, but I'll pass those out while we're doing the Q&A. And if you want to fill them out, that's great. So we'll go to you, sir.
How about, okay, then Nick and then, okay. Right.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the presentation. That was very informative. I just took some screens. Nick Aronoff,
You don't need to say who you are, but
okay.
if you're happy, well,
he wanted to know.
All right.
Thank you, Greg.
No one's forced to identify themselves.
I'm just referencing some screenshots from the presentation that you gave. You talked about our budget and where our expenses are going, and then how to solve that problem. And it seemed to only be at a tax increase. And I didn't see anything in why this is happening, or in the what has the city done to manage its budget. I didn't see anything about cutting costs, like spending. And I'm trying to figure out, when did this, if you could maybe explain to us the timeline here of when was this realized, oh crap, we're spending too much and we need to cut spending, and where have we gone with that? And is this a sort of a last resort? We've done all these spending cuts, and now we have to raise taxes because we've done all those spending cuts. Because you did mention the promenade and how that was funded, but it was more in the notes, it was funded by not going through with other projects in the general fund, and at least the way that it was noted in the staff report. So I guess my overall question is, when was it kind of realized, since you've been here about a year and a half or 2 years, that we have a spending problem? And then why was it not really listed here in the presentation? And what sort of plans or what you guys have looked at as far as cutting spending?
Nick, respectfully, it was my first bullet point as a response was to reduce positions.
Well, positions, but what about projects, spending projects?
Well, we have two problems, right? One is bigger than the other. To me, these are ongoing trajectory problems. How do we reduce our operational expenses? So my goal is to reduce $4 million in operational expenses within this coming budget year. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I'll be hitting some tough things, not just positions, but different things and firstly, let me back up a tiny bit and bore you with city management arcane stuff. There's this theory of budgeting where it's called the Washington Monument Syndrome, where if you're the National Park Service and your budget's going to be cut, you pick the Washington Monument to close because everybody's going to rush in and talk to their members of Congress and say, "Hey, don't cut the National Park Service." And so that's not something I'm going to do. I'm going to propose cutting things that I think should be reduced in service. And those include, they may include some of our Laguna local subsidy. I mean, that ride service costs $48 a ride. So no, yeah, I realize it's not a debate, but so those are the kinds of things you look at. And you do look at, should I be reducing anything in the police department? Well, I can maybe reorganize a little bit, but I don't want to reduce the feet on the street. The park ranger program is really important to address visitor impacts. Similar to the fire department, we just added 3 firefighters because our studies show that's the right amount of firefighter. Actually, we need more, but I'm not proposing more. But so the area where I need to narrow down expenditures are basically my office, some in community development with improved design review process. I think we can pull back some of those positions. We can do some positions, hold some vacancies that are vacant now and eliminate them in HR. But when you talk about programs, I mean, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on what programs we do that we shouldn't be doing or should be doing less of, because we're having those conversations internally. And I haven't presented the budget yet, but I'll do that in the next month. But my goal is not to come to you and say, I've done nothing. And that's not what you need to hear. You need to hear that I've tried to look at our budget. I've tried to get it back under control, and either we do or we don't still have demand after that. And that's a good choice for the community to make. Other folks, how about up front here?
I guess.
Well, wait, we'll come back. I promise we'll come back.
Was that discovered that there was this
Well, we talked about it in last year's budget. If you read the budget document, I talk about headwinds and tailwinds. And I'm more serious about it this year. This is my second formal budget that I've been presenting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
I just echo the frustration of all the day visitors that cost so much to us. The 6 million versus what's our population? 27?
23,000.
23. Great.
Yeah.
Lovely. So that just, I think, irks us all to no end. So my first question would be the parking in South Laguna. I think you guys are working on it. Where are we and why? I mean, that is a massive amount of parking spaces that could be huge revenue and should be huge revenue for us.
So great question. I didn't want to make sure if you had other ones, you're happy to answer them, but
I
I
have
should answer
a
them.
couple more, but then going back to.
I take your mic away, so give them all.
Load my 3 thoughts in. So number one was the South Laguna just drives me crazy when I see all that free parking and knowing that most of those people are what's costing us. The second one, which you brought up, was the Laguna Local and the trolley. Why are we not charging for that if it's costing us so much? I mean, it's lovely if we can provide it for free, but we can't. We can't afford it. So I just question, the value of those programs, if that's what should be cut, even if it's temporarily, or charge visitors $1 to whatever it is. I mean, it should be $5 or like an Uber. The locals should be like an Uber. And then the other thing was marine safety. And this sounds kind of mean. I feel sort of guilty saying this, but I would gather that they help a much larger percentage of visitors than even police and fire. Like, I don't think you can do much about, I mean, I want police and fire, but marine safety, like we've added so many coves. We've added the South or the Aliso Beach. I mean, are there coves that do we just put up a sign and say no lifeguard here? I mean, I don't know. And I hate to do that because I don't want anybody at risk. But again, I'm just looking at the costs. I mean, it does seem like California or Orange County should help us fund this. And I don't know if that's an option because I don't know how that works. But I guess that's the biggest thing is, I'm sure that's your job. That's your challenge is how do we get others to help us support these things so we can have good services?
Yeah, those are good questions and I really appreciate them. The South Laguna addition of paid parking is something that's right on our front burner. I was just communicating with the Coastal Commission about that today. I need to determine what process will not offend them. And I need to be deferential because they can call things up really quickly. And parking, they're very sensitive to, but they're also sensitive to turnover. So my argument to them is, let us charge parking with the rates that were approved yesterday, and let us turn the spots over, at least on Coast Highway, every 4 hours. Because Coastal Commission wants more access to the beach by more people. So that's the give and take of what we're dealing with. But the other thing, a couple of you may have been at the town hall meeting we had probably last October by now, where we were talking about how far do we go inland with regulated paid parking. So we're not in front of somebody's house that's used to having free parking. But anyway, all that has to be wrapped up into a coastal development application. So stay tuned. It's a great question and a great comment, and we are working on it. The Laguna Local, I have a consultant working with me on that and the trolley to try to right size it based on demand and what we could charge for it. Because to me, we're leaking a lot of money from that. And it's a great service, but we were talking about what's common and what's not in other cities. Other cities don't have a microtransit system. As much as we like it, it's expensive and may not be affordable in the long term. Last one about marine safety. I think that's a question we'll continue to a dialogue we'll continue to have with folks. We can leave more coves without lifeguards more often, and that could be some cost savings. We try to be a place where whoever uses the beach is going to be safe. So it's a philosophical thing too, but I appreciate the point. Yeah.
I was going to thank you for this town hall. I appreciate it. My name's Greg Viviani, a long time Laguna Beach local, born and raised here, been here 41 years. Family's been in town since the late 30s, early 40s. Breakdown, 361 parking spaces on the east side of PCH and 232 spaces on the coastal side, possibly from Moss Point to Vista del Sol, that could potentially be paid parking. We're one of the only towns on PCH that I know of that has that much free parking in our town. I know you guys are working on that. I appreciate that effort. I would say that would be huge. That's a lot of revenue that's sitting there that I think that we should really try to, push for. Also, growing up in South Laguna and, on these beaches and these coves that they're potentially quite dangerous in the summer, or, when we have swell and whatnot. The lifeguards do a great job. Kai and his, the whole department, they do wonderful, wonderful job. When it was county, they wouldn't have lifeguards at every single cove in the winter. They would literally have the beaches empty, and they would have a sign that said no lifeguard on duty, swim at own risk. And then if something was to happen, obviously someone would be there. And I know that, and then you could say it could turn into a liability issue. Something happens and, okay, whose fault is it? Why isn't there a lifeguard there? But I think, maybe bringing some of the staffing down. I don't know. I think the lifeguards do a great job. Yeah, we do pay for, the police, the fire department, the marine safety, all the things that you listed. Money is a factor. And I think that a huge concern of mine that I think a lot of the community agree with is the RENA numbers and the increase in the RENA numbers throughout the cities that surround our city that are going to impact the coastal environment and our wildlife by coming to our town. All the big multi-high density homes that are being built right out, the Crown Valley and by the freeways and stuff. They're going to come here and they're going to increase, more and more people. And we get that, which is potentially good revenue if they're paying for parking, if they're spending money in town. My concern is that how are we going to, offset that cost? It's going to be a deficit, huge deficit moving forward. I'm thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And what will it take for the Coastal Commission, for the state to understand that, Laguna Beach is a very biodiverse coastline. We have amazing, beautiful mountains, hills, terrains, everything goes. It's all over social media. It's been all over since, the MTV reality show that was filming when I was in high school here in Laguna Beach. And it's out. Cat's out of the bag. But like the gentleman in the front said, we're paying for the tourists to bring their trash from other areas and they leave it here for us to throw away. What can we implement a pack it in, pack it out, leave no trace completely, like anything like in the, the national parks and stuff, maybe. And just different ways of like, more education. I know the stewardship thing is going, there's a thing happening on the 25th at the Rivian for residents, but I'm just concerned at seeing where we're at with the overhead, the costs, and the growth surrounding our city, and the detriment to the coastline, the environment. Because with the Coastal Commission, their number one motive or mission statement is protect the environment, and then it's access. So those are my statements. Thank you.
Good thoughts all around. I appreciate them. Just a couple of comments back. We have had a conversation or two with the Coastal Commission about when is enough, especially our more sensitive coves or more sensitive rocky tidal, intertidal areas. And they seem receptive to, if we showed them enough information to say that enough is enough, that they would say you could have restrictions on access during those periods. So that's a step forward, but also there's an expense involved in gathering that data. But we're going down that pathway. I appreciate the question. How about over here and then to Wayne? Okay.
So Regina Hartley,
Tina?
this might be way out of left field, but as you know, other cities in Europe are charging a visitor entrance fee or a tax. And if we ever do have a village entrance, would the Coastal Commission allow a visitor entrance fee that maybe could be offset by, if they, if we had like dumpsters set up at the lot 16 or something where they could bring their trash out, they could get a coupon for their next visit for some sort of a percentage discount at one of the restaurants, give them something so they'll give us something. And I think the trash pickup is a huge cost. So I don't know, would the Coastal Commission ever go for something like that, do you think?
I think something that was incentive-based, certainly. Yeah, where we get into trouble is if they're ever perceived as being a cover charge to use what are technically not, even though I use the word all the time, I used to call them our beaches. The Coastal Commission says they're everyone's beaches. So that's the challenge. But I appreciate the point and the thought.
It's our town.
Definitely. Yeah, you got to go through Laguna to get to everybody's beach. Yeah. No, I hear you.
Jennifer Sider, thank you
Hi, Jennifer.
for hosting. Hi, thank you for hosting this forum. A couple of thoughts I wanted to share with you, some potential cost savings, but my frustration always comes back to this. The population of Laguna has remained constant for the last 20 years, between 20 to 24,000 consistently, okay? Our budget when I first came here was $40 million. It's now almost $140 million. But there never seems to be enough money. And yet the population has remained constant, okay? Yes, we have visitors and they come and go, but those points just really bother me, that we continue to spend and spend and spend and spend, and there's never enough money, yet the base population has not changed. Okay, so I think there's something to be said there. My first top 10 list of reducing costs would be reduce the employee count. I went to one of those training programs, I guess, to learn more about the city about 3 years ago. And I started doing the math to figure out how many employees had been added in the last 10 years. It was like 100. It was huge. It was a huge number. I'm like, why are we adding so many employees in so short period of time? So not just freeze new hires, but reduce your employee count. An example, you just hired 3 new attorneys. Full pensions, full salaries, full benefits. I don't know how much that's costing us. It's got to be $600,000, $700,000 a year, maybe more. That's close to $1 million for 3 people we never had on our payroll before, who are now going to, in perpetuity, draw benefits for a very long period of time. So maybe we go back to look into outside counsels, having 3 new people on staff with 3 new offices, 3 new positions, 3 new sets of benefits. Sell St. Catharines. You bought it. I originally thought, wow, what a great property. We could do so much with it. But it's sitting there pretty much not being utilized by the public, but being utilized as what I call City Hall South. We now have police dispatch over there. I think we have some marine safety, but the premises are not being utilized in any significant extent for the residents of this town. That will bring you 24 to 30 million right there. It could also potentially, for those who are into the whole affordable housing, we have to provide it for everybody. That might be a good little avenue to provide some affordable housing in connection with the sale of that property. It's kind of perched up there, kind of behind the trailer park before the Montage, has access to stores, has access to transportation. It might be a good, dual use, if you will. Sell it, maybe put some housing in there. Stop buying property. Stop buying property that we don't have an intended use for. The one in South Laguna, I forgot the name of the restaurant, Tiamo. We bought some other property up the canyon. It seems like we're on this buying spree. Quit buying property. We don't have the money to do it right now, whether it's open space or artist live work or whatever. We simply don't have the money. So that is something that's a luxury. Yes, we'd like to have it, but we can't afford it right now. So quit buying property. We have to live within our means. Better negotiations with the unions. It seems like every year it's like we pretty much roll over and give them what they want, and it's always an increase. And while I'm on the subject of employee benefits, it also unnerves me that we've lost a Friday, every other Friday. They don't work, okay? And now every Friday now that they're working, you can't see them. They're busy, because that's a non-work Friday for the public. We can't go in and talk to our employees because they have work to do. So now you've cut back another day. In addition to the fact, 2 years ago, and it always starts as temporary and then it goes to permanent, you gave them off between Christmas and New Year's. We're just going to try it just as a temporary. Guess what? It's now become permanent. Again, that's another 7 days of work days that we've lost, comes out of our taxes at the end of the day. Charge for the trolley. Absolutely. I've been saying this for years. We can't afford it. $1, 50 cents, whatever it is. Have an automatic pay, electronic PayPal. People play with their phones all the time now. Not a big deal. Maybe you exempt kids. I don't know, 15 and under, 16 and under, let them fudge a little bit like they all do. Eliminate Laguna Rideshare and the Laguna Local. We can't afford it. It's a luxury. It's nice to have. We can't afford it. Cut back there. I talked about terminating the legal staff, all three. The Gelsons and the Heisler building, the Gelsons have been sitting there for 3 years now that it's been vacant? I mean, there's some revenue loss right there on sales taxes. Maybe we need to be a bit more active in what is going on there. Are they just going to hold on to that lease because it costs them less to lease than to actually operate? I don't know, but is there an incentive we can offer them to get a big tenant in there and start generating some revenue for that property? Same with the Heisler building over here, right in front of the Hotel Laguna. And the Hotel Laguna is a nest that was horribly handled, but those are huge potential revenue raisers there. We haven't, are just sitting vacant. Stop trying to buy Laguna Canyon Road. Stop hiring consultants to look at it and to analyze it, et cetera. It's a pipe dream. It should not happen, in my opinion, because of strictly a liability concern. Don't do it. Defund Visit Laguna Beach. And I know a lot of people might be upset about this. I know it's part of the bid or the TOT. I can't remember who pays the TOT. It's $3 million now, and I think we just guaranteed them a 10-year program. People really don't find stuff anymore by going to a Visit Laguna Beach Center. They do it online, Instagram, TikTok, or X, or wherever. They aren't really looking at that. So maybe take those funds with the consent of the businesses who contribute to that, and refunnel it into a way that is better served for the community and or raising revenues. But I don't think VLB is doing a whole lot for our city. I really don't. In fact, I think the opposite, they actually are disadvantaging our city because they advertise all these places that are kind of the little hidden secrets of Laguna. And unfortunately, then you bring people where hopefully, only the locals used to know about it. Remove the red tags. Okay, I know that there was a law passed that says that you can't park within so many feet of an intersection, right? But I think we're pretty much the only city that I've visited that I see those red tags all over. Why don't we measure out the exact distance that we need to comply with the law and restripe the other lines so we don't lose revenue from those tags that are bagged? It's got to be well over 100 in this city. I don't know, but to me, that's a simple no-brainer.
About 40.
It's about 40. Okay, so it's not a huge amount, but it's let's restripe it, move them back. And then the last one is, a tax is a tax is a tax. Yeah, so maybe 50% of the people who come here pay the sales tax. and it's not the locals pay the 50%. But when I go traveling someplace else and I'm paying 11, 12, 13%, it unnerves me. And same with the TOT taxes. Like I go to a hotel and I expect the rate to be 195, then an extra $40 are tagged on my hotel. It upsets me because I'm like, a tax is a tax is a tax. If you don't pay it here, you're going to pay it somewhere else. So we cannot continue to raise taxes. And then we have the mileage tax going on Secretary or at the in Sacramento, that's coming down our doorstep too. We're being taxed to death. So we need to find a way to live within our means. Anyways, I'm sorry to be so long, but thank you.
A lot of really good comments, Jennifer. I really appreciate them. I'm going to hit on a couple of them because I think you raised some things that we should talk about. The CRC, the community, St. Catharines, former St. Catharines Council did give direction and is be ratified on Tuesday night to engage a real estate consultant to potentially look at what are the opportunities there if we were to sell it. Could it be a hotel space? Could it be housing? So that's moving forward Tuesday night. The Gelsons, I love that question. I love when people learn about the frustration we have with Gelsons. Remember, the property owner has a lease with Gelsons. They're being paid over $1 million a year. Gelsons is paying it to the property owner. Gelsons is making more money in their Ocean Ranch, the one on Crown Valley store, that they can absorb all that rental cost and not operate. So the property owner has it's got 10 more years on it, 9 more years on it. So, but the good news is we do have an application in for another use there. It's a sublease to Gelsons. So, more on that soon, I hope, when they put that across the desk. You talked about Visit Laguna. As Greg knows, and Visit Laguna has really tried to do a 180 and say, we're about stewardship now. We're not about trying to get people here. We're now about trying to get people to treat Laguna like Lagunans would treat it once they're here. Because I think they would argue the cat's out of the bag. People know about us. So how can we get people to be better about how they take care of trash? They don't leave any trace. They understand our heritage, our culture. But anyway, great comments, and I really appreciate them. Thank you.
Sure.
Let me go to Jacob, and then we'll go over to you, Wayne. Okay. Okay.
Hello, Jacob. Nice meeting you, guys.
Very gracious of you, Jacob.
Right now. All right.
So, what was your name again? Jennifer. I'd like right now to donate to your campaign when you run for city council. Let's talk after. So I was not able to see the presentation, at least until the tail end of the presentation. But I think I could just guess what was being said. How we're collecting less tax than La Habra or what have you. And that's an opportunity for us to raise our taxes so that we'll be just as good as La Habra or whatever place you want to say. The reason I came down is because this is an interesting fulcrum. We just broke ground. I say we on this ridiculous promenade that is going to cost us. We don't know how much it's going to cost us. Somebody has estimated $7.3 million. I'll take the over on double that.
Over on what? Double?
On the cost of $7.3 million.
Take that with you.
We have already invested millions of dollars in that. And when we're done, it's going to hurt our town, not help our town. And the problem that we had is that our city fathers thought it was a good idea to not listen to the entire city of Laguna Beach. And I can claim that they would be against it because they wouldn't put it on a ballot. And so now we're going to have to live with that thing. They're chopping down trees. They're tearing out curbs and gutters. They have no idea what's under the ground there. Okay. That's just one example. Some of the examples that you raised are very relevant. The St. Catharines City Hall South. That was foolish for us to do that. And what we're going to do with it, I don't know. I've seen estimates that the amount of city staff that we have, particularly in planning, is as large or larger than cities. I mean, genuine municipalities like Newport Beach. You can tell me about that, Dave. And so we're spending more money to house them. We're going to have to pay pensions for them. Why we're not in a defined benefit? Why we're not in a 401k environment? Why don't we change that? I think that would be something that would be very impactful and isn't asking the residents to pay more and more. Laguna Canyon Road, we don't have a highway department yet, and it's already costing us millions. And how our city fathers and mothers are moving us in that direction, I cannot believe that our little town of 20 some odd thousand people, many of which are just visit here, and we're supposed to take on a state highway? So this notion of raising revenue because the city didn't think about it in the last 5 years, 10 years, and now come to the residents and say, give us more money, I'd say they have to fix their house, put that house in order. And there are many things. My memory's not so good. I was thinking about it just coming down here, but I would refer to her list and start there, not start with asking for more money. Let's fix our fiscal house. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much. I'm going to chime in because there are a couple of things that you raised and Jennifer raised I didn't respond to, and Jennifer said that, and at least give you an update. The council did say that they want the Laguna Canyon Road decision to be made in March. So we're going to bring back a full staff report with the pros and cons of all the different alternatives. So that will either be move forward or not move forward by March. Gavin, can you call up the presentation again? I have a slide I didn't show in case the question came up about the changes in employee count, because it's a fair question. Let's look at this one, actually. Yeah, this is one of them. You could put that. Aren't there some at the end? I put them on later on. Are they not on the link? Okay. Let's show that one then anyway. If you could put that up. Is it working? Okay. So I had a bunch of slides I added and it didn't make it to this presentation. So I'm going to have to, I promise to put them on the next one. People have asked me, so what does a typical employee make here? And what does that look like? And how many of them are? So this starts with how frequent our positions are and the average salary. So you see what police officer, then firefighter, fire captains. In the promotional area of firefighting, you start as a firefighter, you promote to either a fire engineer or a fire captain. You can see the police corporals, you can see the marine safety officers. But those are the salaries, and then those are the salaries with the benefits, which includes both the pension cost and the unfunded liability cost. And remember, and again, we could go down a rabbit hole on this. In Laguna Beach, our unfunded liability is primarily over 90% associated with people who are no longer here. So I can't get out from under them, but I need to pay for them. And actually, there's almost 2 workforces that are no longer here. So those are significant amounts of dollars that go out the door, taxpayer dollars that go out the door to pay for that program. I cannot offer a defined benefit a defined contribution plan. We're not going to be bankrupt. Again, this can be managed. I think the question for all of us is, do I ratchet back services so much that I've taken away things that are really special for everybody and make the town special and safe? And again, that's kind of the extreme side of it. Or do we try to or do a little bit of both and try to collect new revenue? So please know, I have one dog in this fight. I'm a resident. I came out of retirement to come back and work here. I'm not trying to bamboozle anybody or scare anybody. I'm just trying to be practical about a town that I really like. So I think we can continue to have these discussions. We should. I really like them. Again, as I noted, I think I do have a slide that shows the changes in position, and some of them will make good sense to you, like our ambulance program. Some of them won't make sense. And that's my job, to try to say, where can I hit the sweet spot and ratchet back without harming things that are important to us? Other questions? Let's go over here to new folks. Okay, Wayne's got the mic. Then we'll go Wayne, and then to you, and then back there. Go ahead,
David,
Wayne.
thank you very much. My mic on? Okay. I've known David since the 1990s when he was working for Marion Bergeson. He's been one of the most exceptional public employees in the city of Laguna Beach, I think, that any of us could ever have. And so please let me go away from that for a moment and just my own personal feeling on Dave. We have a city council right now that has some of the people I've ever seen on city council, and then it goes from my losing campaigns in 1972 to my losing campaigns in 2005. I've been on and off the city council this period of time. We have a city council right now with some of the best people I've ever seen. However, they're doing some of the most ludicrous things I've ever seen a city council do. Who wants Laguna Canyon Road? Who wants a social area down on Forest Avenue? They're doing things right now that I can't see that are spending money that we don't have. But what I'm going to say is that I just say, please, council, as those who have been here tonight, like council, and you've been here, please stand up. Give county council members the strength in their knees that they do not have in the blank, blank, blank fucking right nows. Okay? They need to know where we stand, and they're not staring it. They're spending money on where David spends this money for our police, for our fire, for our planning, everything else, on consultants that we don't spend money on, because we have the ability in our town to have the strength to say yes, 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 maybe, or no. We've got to have that strength. And if you do not show up, at council meetings, you do not have a right to say whether it's right or wrong. You only have to sit back while others be it doing. So please, those of you who are here tonight, stand up in the future. Say something, do something, because if your council members don't hear from you, they're going to call upon a consultant to do it, and we're not going to have things happen in Laguna Beach that they should be done by those of us who love this city so much. Thank you. David?
Yeah, I firstly, I appreciate the kind thoughts, Wayne. I do want to defend the council. I think whenever I've had this conversation with them, the same one I'm having with you today, they take it very seriously. They know the issues that we're facing, which is why they're bringing some of these items to a head. I sat in on all the promenade hearings. I think genuinely there are a lot of people in the community that support it. There's a lot who oppose it, but I can understand why they voted the way they did, and I don't think it's a shortfall of listening. I hope we're all neighbors. We can get to a point where, yeah, we listened and we may have disagreed, but we're still neighbors and we're still respectful of that disagreement. And that's in large part how I see that promenade discussion have gone, but I appreciate the comments.
We've neglected this side.
Okay.
Thank you. Teresa Prelitz. I just want to make a comment about some of the things that I'm hearing that I'd like to maybe have us shift our consciousness about a bit, which is kind of that us and them thinking or languaging around visitors who are coming to use the beaches. And I like the idea that the mindset of the tourist bureau is to say, how do we educate people? Because many of us were the other that visited Laguna Beach growing up, that loved it here and became tax-paying citizens here. And so I think it's a matter of shifting our mindset from saying, you know, us and them. We're all us. And so are there other ways to educate and to, you know, I can imagine even citizens, being taught as citizens how to speak to people who are leaving trash in a respectful way. You know, just educating them about you leave the plastic, the fish eat it, we eat the fish, just simple things like that. So I just like that us or them thinking, I think, can cause a lot of frustration and a lack of creativity. And the other mindset that I'd like for us to kind of think about is that either or mindset. Like it's either we have the trolley for free or we eliminate it. It's an either or thinking when the truth is there's 1,000 other options in between. Like, you know, our oldest daughter has Down syndrome. She takes, the transit system 3 times a week to her day program at St. Mary's. Incredible service. Did we know that it was $48 a ride? No. Are we willing to pay some of that? Absolutely. But the either or mindset of it's either you eliminate it or you have it for free is a false thought. There's thousands of, and there's so much creativity in this town that I'd just like for us to consider those thousands of other options that come from people just like us.
Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. On the Visit Laguna Beach side, on the 25th, Wednesday the 25th, is that just next week? You're all welcome to come to the Rivian. I think it's at 6 or 7. I'll try to get better information out there. Where Visit Laguna Beach is rolling out the stewardship program, not very different from what you're talking about. That how do we as residents treat visitors to encourage them to value Laguna the way we value Laguna? Some really interesting messaging. So everyone's welcome to come to that forum. It's generally a forum for residents themselves. And I appreciate your comments about Laguna Local too. I think there is a sweet spot in there, which is what my former colleague Carol is looking at in terms of trying to determine what we could ratchet back and get back within our budget. Okay, Mary? No, up here. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Mary.
I have the mic. I'm not giving it up. No.
You're not giving up?
Mary Locatelli. I just have a couple of questions. When we met on the 30th, Dave, you had talked about a charter city. I didn't hear that mentioned tonight. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I'll comment on
Okay.
that.
And the second one is, I know we talked on the 30th about the sales tax. I don't remember much about TOT. Are you talking about both taxes now? 2 new taxes or just one?
It would be one.
One of the two.
Picking which one.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. And then the third one is simple. Can we get a copy of the slide deck and how?
Of course, we're hopefully going to post it on the website. Sorry, 3 questions. Pardon me? Charter city, yeah. When I look at, so charters can be, again, we're a general law city, meaning we follow all of the general laws of the state of California. Lots of good things about it. It served Laguna well. Charter cities, they're around us. They can carve out special areas where they can do things differently. It sounds silly, but it's not to me. But one of the things that state law says that only that you can't do if you're not a charter city, so you have to do it if you're a general law city, is a city employee has to place the ticket on a windshield for a parking violation. So in other cities, you can have a private firm come in and all they do is parking enforcement. And it's kind of scary in a way because we might get caught up in that, but I think we're missing a lot of revenue And again, it's a visitor-oriented impact a lot. So if we were enforcing that correctly, I mean, I think there's $500,000 a year sitting there that we're not collecting. But it takes being a charter city to do that. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of understanding on the public's part, and I understand skepticism, but that's what we're going to talk about. Pardon me? Yeah, the council on the other night, the first meeting in February said, move forward. They looked at a draft. They said, try to do a carve out for parking enforcement. The other difference is fines. General law cities like us has to follow state limits on what we can fine people for misbehavior, like shooting off a firework when you shouldn't, smoking somewhere where you shouldn't be smoking, where a charter city has greater leeway to impose greater fines. So there's a handful of other things like that.
David, does the charter city have any difference with the postal commission that we have?
No, it's a good question, but no. Or housing. The state legislature does this thing where it says, this is an issue of statewide concern. And that declaration, those 7 words, mean that charter cities have to follow them just like general law cities. And that circle or that slice of power that charter cities used to have has gotten smaller over time. And we all need to be aware of that. There's still some things that make it valuable, but those could go away too. Question there, and then
Yes.
we'll go around.
Thank
Hi.
you for hosting the town hall.
Thanks for being here.
And this is a very odd suggestion, realizing that the state has mandated affordable housing and we can't get away from it. I don't think developers have enough incentive to create affordable housing since we bought St. Catharines. Could that be used by the city for affordable housing? Because then the city can mandate what affordable housing is. And some developers come in and say, oh, we'll have affordable housing and there's 2 small units. Everything else is market price. But if the city could control it, we might have a better chance of meeting the mandate.
That's a good suggestion. And the answer is yes, it could. Yeah, it could do all those things.
Just one more thing on the charter city. Is that also a supermajority of the council and a majority of the residents have to approve that?
I think it's a majority of the council and a majority of the residents. I don't think there's a super majority like a tax. Yeah.
So the community stewardship community forum at the Rivian is 6:30 p.m. Wednesday, February 25th till 8:30 p.m.
Thank you.
Doors are at 7 p.m.
Okay.
I would say per the not listening aspect, for the 10-year contract, I would say that was a not listening aspect. 90% of the people that were opposed to that, there's like 90% of people were opposed to it. I would say 10% were for it. They still voted to do 10 years. In my opinion, I think that was something that they did not listen to the residents on. We are where we are. We're going to work with it. I think that I would say the structuring of their, like restructuring of the people running the Visit Laguna is a lot better. And I think that with the more oversight, there is a positive that, we got to give them a shot, give them a chance. But I think that there should definitely be, a lot of feedback that's, taken into consideration. Obviously, just, sitting on the table, money, the parking in South Laguna, I'll just say it again, on PCH. And then the final thing that I was going to say was, oh God, I forgot. Here, go to him and I'll come back. I've thinking of too many things.
Okay.
One thing that concerns me with what we've been talking about today, and we've heard some great comments from a lot of residents, is making drastic decisions that we can't undo, like some that have already been done. People have said, like the promenade, and that would be like for example, maybe selling St. Catharines is the right thing to do, but if we do it quickly because we're in a rush because we have this hole in the budget, we can't undo that. And then later on, we're like, oh crap, we could have put housing there, but we sold it to a developer to build, whatever they wanted to build because we got the highest market price for it. So that's where cutting, tightening our budget before making these drastic decisions because, we're in debt, it sounds like. So that's a concern. So making sure that like, we do all the things that people have like kind of talked about that seem to be the easiest stuff, trimming the fat on the top. But when it comes to the taxes that you pointed out in the slide, I think it was interesting to note that all the towns that were nearby were roughly the same. So if we jump out ahead of them, Dana Point, Newport Beach, Irvine, like people are going to spend their money in other areas. People are going to stay the night in other areas. I have friends visiting from out of the country this summer. They're going to spend, they didn't want to spend the night in Laguna Beach because of the cost. Now, there are different levels for people with different budgets, but if taxes go up, like some other residents have said tonight, people are going to spend their dollars in other areas because, like you mentioned in the slides, with the economy and those issues. So I think that's something to consider. Like when you looked up at like Santa Barbara and Solvang, those are two towns nearby. It'd be interesting to see how much, volume that Santa Barbara's lost because they're higher than Solvang. We need to keep that in mind. Just because you put Laguna at the bottom with all the other towns in Orange County, but they're all the same, that is something that I think is, a short-sighted look. And I think that's what a lot of residents are concerned about, is making a quick decision that can't easily be undone down the road.
Well, to that point too, especially with the CRC, I want to be clear about what I was saying. The council wants to bring somebody on board who's an expert at analyzing what the options are. It's not someone to come in and sell it. And I think you guys know, because you lived here a long time, we don't do anything fast. So I don't think that's so. Let me just say, I think the approach with the CRC is appropriate. I'm certainly encouraging that slow thinking approach. And the reason that we're having these meetings is we're not in debt. I'm just looking for signs ahead, and I'm trying to advise the council and the residents what's ahead. It's not rocket science, not at all. So you're right. If we don't get new revenues, we could probably muddle through. The question is, what does muddling through look like? And again, like I said, I live here too. I look at this closely. I think Laguna needs to do well and continue to do well as a whole community, not necessarily as a city government. And one way to do that is to make sure that our services are strong. It's my own opinion. Hopefully I'll be here after I go back to retirement, and I want to enjoy the great town that it is. But I respect everything that everybody said about the impacts of taxation and the balancing between, do you go there where there's a lower rate or here? That's certainly an argument against the tax. I don't know. I think Laguna is still different. I think we still have things that are special that could accommodate that and could still encourage people to come here. But I understand the point. It's a good one.
I just have a random thought on the CRC sale possibility. And I like the idea of taking our time and really thinking that out. And just one thought when I was listening to part of the strategic planning session, and it made me wonder about Lang. And has the sale of the Lang property ever been thought of? Because I know the CRC is new and just bought. And personally, I hope that ends up being a good value for us, because it sounds like even if we sell it, we'd make money on it. But just going back in terms of use, like we're hurting for room. Like I know that they want to build an extra level for the EOC. And I think of St. Catharines, and I know it well because my kid went to school there. It's seismic building. It's beautiful property. It's got a full gym. And I think of where Lang, I remember taking my kid to Paste and Pour 20 years ago. It's kind of run down. So I want to absolutely hear the pushback on that from residents who use it and whatnot. But I wonder a little bit, have we looked at that? And it may not get as much money. I don't know size-wise. But since you mentioned that they were going to take a look at that, in terms of thinking long-term, of what I'd hate to sell the CRC and then go, oh, we don't have space. Now we have to buy something else. Like I would hope that they would think through that, since Lang clearly needs a major overhaul or remodel if we're ever going to really use it to its extent. I wonder if the CRC might be better from a long-term perspective. So just a thought.
Those are all great points.
And I don't know if we can or can't.
Yeah, no, those are great points. Yeah. The facility there at Lang, especially the gym, is dilapidated. Yeah. All right, going back to Greg again. All right.
Back again. I remembered. Sorry about that. So first thing I would say is we all know that the promenade area is under construction. I would suggest big shops open during construction signs that you can read from far away, because the ones that are up there are very small print. You can't see when you're driving by, and it looks like the whole street shut down. I suggest everyone in this room, everyone you know, to go to those shops and those restaurants and those stores, because 5 or 6 months or however long it's going to take to build that thing is going to be a big impact on their revenue, which in turn is revenue to help the city out. And then per the charter city situation possibility, would you be able to hire on like the high level security or like third party like security or enforcement as well? Or would that just still strictly be the park rangers along with Laguna Beach PD?
Well, we do that now, right? We have Lion Security that supplements the park rangers. So no, that power, it does exist with a general law or a charter city.
Noticed the high level security rate when they were doing their, beach access points and checks at night.
Yeah.
They were very, very professional.
They better still be doing that because we're paying them. I'm going to look at it. Oh, okay.
HLS.
Oh, I see. You mean the company, oh, this is Lions. All right. I appreciate the concern.
I'll keep my comments brief. I just want to recognize, we all may live in the same town, but we're all having different experiences in this town every day. The only thing that I'm consistently hearing and feeling from other people is that the one experience that most of us can share is that we feel like our city council isn't working for us, that they're working for the day trippers, the tourists, the people that don't live here. And I know that, our population is between 20 to 23,000, but there's only 10 to 15,000 people who really live here full time that are true residents. And yes, people are active and come to city council meetings. People are active and watch them online. They're trying to play a part in a variety of organizations that exist in this town, but they still feel like their city council sits there, puts in their earplugs, and then makes the decision that's best for whatever their goal is for the Laguna Beach that they want to live in. And so I know we all came here tonight because we want to hear from you. And like, we deeply care about the budget, and we're so grateful that you can give explanations to us. Like, we want to be able to talk more at our city council meetings, but we understand that needs to be controlled. But I think most of us are going to walk away tonight and feel like everything we said didn't matter. And so I don't think we know how to improve our relationship with our city council. So they start to make decisions based off of what's best for the residents. And because we all consistently believe they're not basing their decisions off that. So if there's something else long-term that they're more focused on, and it's not our way of living.
I appreciate those comments. I would very respectfully challenge you to call each one of them and spend some time with them. Each one of them does that. I know all 5 of them meet with residents individually and have them hear you out and then hear them out. I don't think your perspectives are that different. I understand what you're saying, but I give that a try.
So there's a trustworthiness level that has diminished over the recent years. Not your fault, not your fault. And Visit Laguna extension of their contract is a prime example of that. They had been doing bad behaviors that created problems for our city, and their lease was up. So we had an opportunity of either chucking them, having them have a probationary period of a year, or 2 years, or 3 years. And what did our council do? It's an irrevocable 10-year commitment. And I just don't understand why that is. I don't know if you can explain it. I think Gavin is on the board, aren't you?
Pointing me out. I'm just an advisory on the board, not actually a voting member.
Well, my point was that, by the way, you're one of the best looking people on that board. But the problem with that is that the people who are on the boards are, what are there, 2 Laguna Beach people on the board
Well,
out of 10? I mean, there's somebody
keep
from,
going. Yeah, I don't want to cut you off.
from the
Appreciate what you're
airport
saying.
that's on that board. Anyways, my
Yeah.
point is, that was a completely wrong decision they did. They could have done any period less than 10 years. I can't understand why they would do 10 years. By the way, I do have a question, charter versus general. I seem to have in the back of my head, and I could be completely wrong, but I think if you have a charter city, the manner in which you float bonds is different. That in a general, if we're organized under a general city, it's more onerous to pass a bond. And that if you're in a charter city, it's easier to pass a bond.
You mean like the vote requirement is different?
Yes.
No, that's not my understanding, but I'll look at it.
Because I mean, you know,
The state law is very clear about election law and the voter thresholds to pass a tax or a bond or a partial tax or anything like it. But I'm happy to look at it.
let's
Okay.
compare notes on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. We're going.
Just really quick.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, when Fay and I moved to Laguna Beach in 1969, no one wanted to hear us because it was loaded a bunch of hippies. But what was affordable was our housing was available compared to the rest of Laguna Beach. Right now, our housing is not affordable to the rest of Laguna Beach. For those who want a residence here, but those who want to recreate here, you can come to Laguna Beach and pay for parking for $20. You can go to Disneyland and go $100 per person. We have an unusual situation, whether we like it or not, to be one of the affordable destinations in Southern California. And the sad thing is that we pay for it. I'm sorry that we pay for it, but at the same time, when I go down to Heisler Park on the weekends especially, and I see the dozens of people who are enjoying themselves down there, and they're a very ethnic backgrounds, we're providing something for Southern California. And I'm sorry that we're paying for it, but we're providing something which is highly unusual and something that when Fay and I came here in 1969, we could pay for it. Many cannot pay for living in Southern California right now. I want to see that anyone who does come here pays for police, fire, lifeguard protection, and that's our Laguna Beach City Council and seeing a way that that's done. But in paying for something that these people who are able to live the Southern California lifestyle for just 24 hours or less, and we in Laguna Beach are providing for that and no one else is, I guess I'm proud of, because I love the people who live here. I love the people who visit here. And please, all of you, one way or another, let's find a way to do it because we're really good people. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, just really quick. So I really hope we can find a way to live within our means and do some cuts so that we can get back. And I understand the pension continuing to grow, the pension unfunded liability. But if we end up going with the TOT increase or a sales tax increase, be careful this time around, because I was adamant against Measure P. A lot of people here might have been for it. But what the city pulled, I was not wise at the time. So if you hire consultants to try to message the voters and manipulate the voters, and we're paying it with our tax dollars to do so, and then you have what I call the horse and pony shows in the different conference centers, okay? That is advocating for a position which benefits the city, which you're not allowed to do Okay, you're supposed to be impartial and let the voters decide. So if you're going to go that route, and we'll have to see how it all lays out, I'm going to be watching very, very carefully because I'm a little wiser this time around. Okay.
You're exactly right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep,
I
expect
appreciate that.
Yeah. How about, has Les gone yet? Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk. Les McCloskey, Top of the World. I recall that John Thomas about 5 years ago pointed out that it costs us about $20 a head for anybody to sit on the beach in this town. That's just the overhead of managing the tourist traffic in this town. So I posted on this I manage a blog also called Laguna Streets. It's into the numbers. I posted on there what it costs in some of the other beach cities in California in order to get out of your car and park there. And so it's on the blog. Malibu was at the time about $20, and this is in accordance with rules from the Coastal Commission, all approved by Coastal Commission. Pacific Palisades was $40. Malibu is $20. If you want to go to Yosemite, it's $30 a carload to unload there and get out of the car. My very favorite is Venice, Italy. If you want to disembark from a boat, it's 30 euros to get off the boat. So Laguna could look at that, could have started looking at that 5 years ago, at least when John Thomas brought it up. On affordable housing, I talked to the city clerk, I talked to the city manager, I spoke with the city mayor to find out what is the inventory of commercial and residential housing in this town. And it's not that they don't know the numbers. The point is that they did not want to look for the numbers. They said it was impossible, all three of them. I don't know if they had a prior meeting, a splinter meeting before I showed up, but they all had the same answer. That's not acceptable. We need to know what our inventory is before you go digging, breaking ground in some of these projects and finding out what it really costs to build here. I've spoken with, what is it, Reality California and Bill Witt, directly on the project for the Neighborhood Congregational Church, asked them some specific questions. I got no reply. And to a superintendent, no reply. There's a lot of talent in this town, and a lot of us are very professional, coming from industry, and there's a lot of capability that we could bring to the table, but I find consistently the council and the city refuse us. And I've been at least talking about the mobility plan of this town. How do you manage 7.5 million tourists and their cars, and you want to build parking structures? Do I hear 8 million a year? No, this is not the way to move forward. You build a locals bus at $40, $48 a boarding. Well, the white and blue bus was only 15 or 18, but we retired our transportation manager, so she couldn't follow that through any further. And lastly, the promenade. We started this promenade on September 17th, 2010, Parking Day. Transition Laguna got together, and we cooperated with the city. We bagged all the meters to demonstrate what the value of public space was in the promenade. And that rolled into, it was supposed to be more of a community effort to build consensus and figure out how could Laguna benefit by eliminating the traffic down there, but replacing the transportation at the same time. So you sit down at the time. The concept was you write down project requirements, figure out what problems are solved, how do you solve them, what's it going to cost, get a referendum before voters, all of that. These are the requirements of a project of that magnitude. I have yet to see a project requirements list from the city. I wrote one. It's on the blog. All this stuff I'm saying, I have the numbers. They're on the blog. Employees in this town, I have the cost of city employees per person and per resident and per what? Anyway, there's no normalized costs. Of 9 cities, Laguna's at the highest. Those numbers are in public data. They're public information.
Sorry, listen, what are we the highest of?
We are the highest.
Highest of what?
Employee cost per resident, employee
Oh, cost per resident. I see.
per resident, and per resident. So we seem to be consistently the highest, yet we're underperforming. We can't even figure out how do you build a promenade when half the people don't like it. The polls, the polls on Next Door and in the Independent, 90.3% opposed. It's because these folks don't understand the value, because the city didn't do a public outreach to get everybody on the page at the very beginning of this. And this thing has been in process since 2010. And the city took it over and said, "Oh, we're going to build this because of COVID." No, that's a complete hijacking of the promenade. We ought to be honest about it. Okay, I said enough. But thank you, Jennifer, because she does a very good job at pointing out detail.
So your blog, Laguna Streets. Here it is.
I would, Les, maybe you and I should spend time looking at the housing element, and you may have done it already, but if you're looking at housing inventory sites, that's what is included in the housing element. If you're looking at what number of units we have now, oddly enough, that doesn't matter. The state just says you've got to accommodate 394 new units, and they're going to give us another boatload in 2 years. So what's important for us to know is, are we able to cite those 394 now? And that's described in the housing element. And will we indeed be ready to cite the next amount that comes to us?
You don't know. You don't even have no clue.
Okay. Those should all be part of our solutions. Other questions? You should get the mic from Nick. I'm sure he's willing to give it up just for a little bit. Yeah.
Perhaps going forward, when people apply for an ADU, ask them if they're willing to make it affordable housing, because the city emailed me, you weren't manager at the time, asking me why I had not applied for a permit for an ADU, but our home's less than 1,400 square feet. The lot's 2,300. So I offered a permit for a tree house, and they haven't asked me since.
Well taken.
So a two-part question here. So the first part, I like what the one resident over there, what you said about like trying to work with the tourists. We don't want it to be adversarial, just like we don't want it to be adversarial with with City Hall and with staff. But when we hear things like no work, not summer Fridays, year round, no, every other Friday.
Well, I'd be happy to address that. I didn't before, but go.
Okay, yeah. So maybe there's like some technicalities there. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to misspeak on that, but just those overall benefits. And I know you keep saying like, we want to hire the best of the best, but no one's ever asked like, are we actually hiring the best of the best and actually getting those staff members? I think maybe providing the residents some information of like how many people we've lost to other cities and how we've had to replace. But the question would be like when it comes to tourists coming into town, all the different ways, because it's common online where they're like, the 10 ways to not spend $1 in Laguna Beach or something like that, right? And so if you think about if we all close your eyes or something and you drive in from the south, you park down at the Ritz, you pay to what is that, Laguna Niguel or Dana Point, their parking fees, you hop on the trolley and you ride into Laguna for free, you go to the beach for free, you brought all your own food, you threw the trash away. Like that goes back to the previous gentleman's comment about the cost to just enjoy the day at the beach, what it costs the city, and how to like maybe, obviously we don't want to eliminate all those. I'm sure the Coastal Commission would not be happy about us eliminating all the free ways of enjoying the city, but maybe reducing it and finding ways to implement that like on those peripheral areas of people coming into, spending the money on parking outside of town and then coming in for free. And I understand there's some technicalities with like the money that we get for transit. But when it comes to that, and when it comes to all these great ideas that we've heard, what are some of the ones that are like realistically implementable like this summer? Because if we talk about if the tax is the way that you guys have to go and whether residents like it or not, well, that's not until that, you know, has to be voted on in the fall. So what kind of things can we do now over the next, you know, for this summer? What is stuff that the city is looking at to actually implement right away? Because as you said, things take forever. So because, you know, we don't want to be giving all these great ideas, but then they can't be implemented until 2027.
Well, a couple of things. One, the cost reductions I'll propose in the new budget would be implemented as of July 1st. And again, I'm looking at $4 million. That's a lot. Parking in South Laguna, that's my goal, to get something up and running to maximize as many spaces as we can. A lot of that will depend on, can I get a coastal development permit in time to do that? Those are two things. We've already tried to implement, we're going to try to implement better cost recovery for community development fees. That's an increase, actually. I understand that. And by the way, to answer Jennifer's comment about the Fridays. So on our, remember we work 9-hour days, right? We don't work 8-hour days. We're here from 7:30 to 5:30. And the concept is, and you can like it or not, I'm respectful of if you don't, where we work 9 days, eight of the days are 9-hour days, and then 1 day, the Friday that we do work, is an 8-hour day. So we are working 40-hour weeks. And you are here late. And yeah, but that's okay. But what community development has tried to do is to say, and again, that there's a couple of fields that we have a hard time keeping people in. One is police officers. And I really didn't say I want the best of the best. I just want really good. I'm not going to be able to get the best of the best in all cases. I'd love to have them, but we don't pay at the best of the best. We pay it hopefully pretty darn good. So, but we do lose police officers, often to Newport, often to Irvine. They train up. They have more opportunities there sometimes because a bigger police department, you have more specialty kinds of things you can do, like SWAT team or mounted unit, things like that. The other group I lose is planners. And so as and you guys, a couple of you noted how big our planning staff is. Our planning staff is big because our code is unlike anybody else's. So we're trying to peel that back and do less. But that has an impact too, right? If we have less design review, we have more potential consequence that someone could build something next to you that you didn't like. So that intricacy requires more planners to keep up with the planning load because each application takes more time. But also those same planners, they're in high demand. Laguna is a great place to train and then leave. Hey, I worked in Laguna Beach. I worked in the hardest place to work in. So therefore, you're going to want me in Mission Viejo or Irvine or Tustin, and I'm going to have a better quality of life there because I'm not here till all hours working on really complex projects. So that's an area where we did try to compromise with our team members to try to get them to stay working for us by giving them the Friday where we'd be working their work from home. And they get to catch up then on their staff reports and their processing that they have a hard time doing when the counter's active all day. So I know it's a service diminution, but we do hope that we keep the people here and then catch up on our backlog, which we've done. But I understand the concern. But so remember, on Fridays, we're still all here. It's the community development counter that's closed. Finance counter is open. Police department's open, obviously. City manager's office, city clerks, we're all open. But I appreciate that point too. Which would I not address? So go ahead. July 1. Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. Chris.
Dave, Chris Prelitz, 45 years here as a general contractor doing design build. And I had one project where we had 5 different planners throughout the project, and not a good time. But because this video will go onto YouTube and people might see it through the city, I really blame a lot of the loss of turnover with staff on the people who live here. I've been at the desk and I've seen people come up and be the worst Kens or Karens you could imagine, and just ripping people, very entitled, very demanding. I wouldn't stay. I wouldn't I wouldn't work for people, for someone like that. So we really have to look inside and see ourselves. How are we reacting with staff? And I would really encourage everyone to really be respectful. We've had a loss of civil discourse over the last 10 years, and I hope Laguna can be an island that doesn't have that, and we can really treat staff with respect, because I think they do a fantastic job. It's refreshing to have you here. We've had a lot of placating bureaucrats in the past, and I really appreciate your transparency, vulnerability, and how you work with us. And I know you want Laguna to be the best for you, because when you retire, you'll live here. That's refreshing to know, and just applaud you for all you're doing. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate that, Chris. And to your point about firstly, 90% of the people are really nice when they come to the counter, and we love that they are. Then there's the 10% that are not. And oftentimes they're not frustrated so much at the person, they're frustrated at the process. And because the person has to tell them the process steps. We have a 307-point checklist that planners have to do when they get an application in for zoning plan check. That doesn't exist in Newport. It doesn't exist in Dana Point, and it's a big deal. Where I have had people who be difficult, I'll come over. I had to console a planner who was weeping in their office because of their interaction. And again, it's about the customer was taking it out on her when it was really, our process is just really hard. But I really appreciate those comments.
Sorry, my third time and I'm done.
Okay, that's all right.
I know.
Still got
we gotta
5 more
wrap
minutes.
up. I was kind of blown away by the number that 55% of our sales tax comes from visitors. That's nothing. When you think of that, we're 23,000 and we get 6 million visitors, yet only 55% of our sales tax comes from visitors. Like that's we're like 1%. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, this point has been made by many in this room. A lot of people who come for our day visitors, they bring their stuff with them. They've gone to Costco and
So going to that, I love that Visit Laguna at least is shifting more to environmental and stewardship. Thank you. How do we get those 6 million to spend money here? I mean, maybe we do. And I know sometimes it's the retail makeup and it's some things that are out of our control, but that is something when you look at that 55%, how do we get people spending money here? I mean, do we need to market to Orange County? I don't know. I'm just like speaking out because that number blew me away, but how do we get them spending here? And I know that they versus, and I love the visitors. I took a small part-time job a year ago at the Temecula olive oil store for fun, and it blew me away. I have a retail background, but I was blown away. Hotel guests spend a ton of money in our town. It is amazing. And they were continuity. And if you had internet, they stayed with you, yada, yada. But I remember thinking it was a sunny day. It was packed in town. And I had just started this store and thinking, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to be so busy today. Nothing. Zero. Because no one could park. I had phone calls to the store. I was running olive oil out like 2 blocks down from people who were circling because they said, oh, we never come on a sunny day. So just number one, how do we get those? And I'm not answering that today, but I think just looking at revenue, we need to figure out how to get those people to spend more money. Are we not affordable? Do we need more affordable? I see all the In-N-Out burgers and the McDonald's wrappers that clearly weren't bought here. And I'm not saying load up on all visitor stuff, but I think that there is a balance there that we need to figure out. How do we get them to spend more money? And then the other thing that I was just thinking of was shopper parking. You know, we don't have any shopper parking. All of our parking is taken up on a sunny weekend day. No one comes into town to shop here because they can't park. And it's not because, part of it is there's no parking, absolutely. But part of it's because it's taken up. And people now, because you can do it on your app, they just kind of easily like renew. So they're not spending 4 hours at the beach and then leaving so somebody else can come. They're here all day long. We see the big wagons with the coolers and the pop-up tents. I mean, they have moved their condo to the beach and they're there permanently. So of course, no one's spending money. So I don't know, I'm going on, but I just think that we need to figure that out and maybe spend more time on that 6 million. They're not going away. They're only going to get larger. So how do we figure that out? And maybe that is, you know, treat them nicely, but just say, hey, please drop some dollars in our town, please. That should be marketed somehow, some way. We want to keep Laguna beautiful for you. You're welcome here. We don't all hate you, but please, pitch in and help our town to be that much better.
Those are all really great points. And we talk about that internally, arguably not as passionately as you just said, but about how we can promote those businesses that are more visitor serving, but yet not feel like, we're McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Taco Bell. But I look at trash just like you do to try to see, was this someone who purchased something in Laguna? And I think it's something we need to definitely keep an eye on. So all ears.
And we've had 200 spaces eliminated in the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, I personally think we need to think about a structure somewhere. Maybe it's at Act 5. I don't know. The council is going to be talking about that pretty soon again, too. Understand?
But one thing he did do when he was on council is that we need to elevate quality of our stores and our restaurants to attract a higher end visitor, which means more tax dollars, more sales tax revenue. I don't know how people feel about that, but we're very anti franchise, right? We don't have party in franchises in town. Well, but people come sometimes for those franchises. So maybe something to look
You see there's a new men's clothing store going in on the promenade that is no, but it's a pretty high end chain. I'm going to forget it. You're going to look at me because Faraday's, yes, right next to the Temecula oil. It's coming soon, but that's the kind of thing that I think we are seeing with the promenade. People are seeing some opportunities there, and I think it will. I also think obviously we're lost because of Hotel Laguna not being there. That was a time that was a place to have 60 or 80 people a night coming in and spending time eating dinner and eating breakfast, and so stay tuned on that too. That's frustrating. All right, Mary, and then we'll let everybody go.
I've heard people talk about the fact that on the East Coast, they actually have a beach charge. You want to go to the beach, you pay. And I'm told we can't do that here because of the Coastal Commission. But can we not make an argument that the Coastal Commission's job is to maintain the pristine nature of the beaches? And if we did, I mean, we could charge the residents as well and have like a shopper permit for the residents. They would have to have a chip or whatever to go to the beach as well. But it would be reduced so that they could go more frequently with their little parking sticker, whatever, beach sticker. And the people coming from out of town would have to pay to go to the beach.
It's interesting. I think we're trying to see if they want to come to Laguna Beach for their December meeting. So they might be right here. And maybe you can make that argument before them. The commission itself. Yeah. They meet all up and down the state. I don't know that they've met recently in Laguna. But they're a formidable group. Anyway. Well, thank you all so much for being here. If you want to keep apprised of things, thanks. Send me a little email. We didn't put the contact information on there, but I think most of you know how to find me. It's dkiff at the Laguna, and I'll make sure you're aware of these next when we even share more information. But thank you again for spending the time with us. Okay. I'm sorry it got warm here at the end.
Good to see you. Isn't it fun being here? Almost. I'm going to sit down. Hey, thanks a lot.